My mother-in-law said, "You can't take care of my son." I smiled. "We'll see." I filed for divorce and took everything. He turned pale as I left with his money and our child, leaving him with nothing. So here I am, sitting in my new apartment, with a glass of wine, watching my daughter play with her toys, and I can't help but laugh at how this whole mess started. Like, who would have thought that one conversation with my mother-in-law would completely flip my entire life upside down? But hey, sometimes the universe has a twisted sense of humor, and honestly, I'm here for it. Let me take you back to where this all began. Picture this. I'm 25, fresh out of college with a business degree, and I meet this guy at a Starbucks. Classic meet cute, right? He's ordering some complicated drink with like 5 modifications, and I'm behind him rolling my eyes because I just want my basic vanilla latte. We start talking and boom, 3 years later, we're married. His mom seemed cool at first. You know how it is. Everyone's on their best behavior during the dating phase. She'd bring over homemade cookies, ask about my job, the whole 9 yards. I thought I'd hit the jackpot with in-laws. Boy, was I wrong. The red flags started showing up pretty much right after we got back from our honeymoon in Cancun. Suddenly, everything I did was wrong. The way I folded his shirts wasn't right. The meals I cooked weren't what he was used to. And don't even get me started on how I apparently didn't know how to properly organize a pantry. Like, ma'am, it's Cheerios and pasta sauce, not rocket science. But I brushed it off, you know? New marriage, adjusting to life together, all that jazz. I figured his mom was just being protective of her precious baby boy. Little did I know she was basically grooming him to see me as incompetent. The real kicker came when I got pregnant, with our daughter. You'd think this would be a happy time, right? Wrong again. Suddenly, I became the worst possible candidate for motherhood in her eyes. She'd make these little comments like, "Oh, are you sure you should be drinking that much coffee?" Or, "I hope you're reading all the parenting books I recommended." The woman literally created a Google Doc of essential parenting tips and shared it with me. A Google Doc. I kid you not. My husband, completely oblivious. Or maybe he just didn't want to deal with it. Every time I'd bring up his mom's behavior, he'd hit me with the classic, "That's just how she is," or "She means well." Dude, your mom telling me I'm holding my own baby wrong is not meaning well. It's straight up disrespectful. Things got progressively worse after our daughter was born. This woman would show up unannounced, walk right into our house like she owned the place, and start rearranging things. She'd change the baby's diaper and then make comments about how I wasn't doing it tight enough. She'd bring her own baby food because apparently the organic stuff I bought wasn't nutritious enough. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening, in March. I remember it perfectly because I'd just gotten home from work. I was doing freelance marketing consulting from home while taking care of the baby, and I was exhausted. Like, running on 3 hours of sleep and way too much caffeine exhausted. I walk into my kitchen, and there she is, reorganizing my cabinets while my husband sits at the table scrolling through his phone. Not helping, not stopping her, just sitting. They're like, this is totally normal behavior. "Oh good, you're home," she says without even looking at me. "I've been fixing your kitchen organization. You had the dishes in completely the wrong places." I take a deep breath. "Thanks, but I actually like my kitchen the way it is." She stops what she's doing and turns to look at me with this expression. You know the one. The bless your heart look that Southern moms perfect. "Sweetheart, you clearly don't know how to run a household properly. I'm just trying to help." My husband finally looks up from his phone. "Mom's just being helpful, honey." And that's when she said it. The words that would change everything. "You can't take care of my son?" The room went dead silent. Even the baby stopped babbling. I felt my face get hot, and for a second, I thought I might actually lose it right there in my own kitchen. But instead, I smiled, like, genuinely smiled. "We'll see," I said. Update. Holy moly, the response to this post has been insane. Thank you all for the support and for sharing your own stories. Some of you have been asking for more details about what happened next, and honestly, I'm still processing it all myself. The legal stuff moved faster than I expected, and let's just say my mother-in-law's reaction was something else. Should I continue with the whole story? What would you want to know most? That night, after she left and my husband went to bed, like nothing had happened, I sat up researching divorce lawyers. Not because I was ready to leave yet, but because I wanted to know what my options were. Knowledge is power, right? I found this amazing attorney who specialized in cases involving financial abuse and emotional manipulation. Yeah, you read that right. I was starting to realize that what had been happening to me had actual names and legal definitions. During our consultation, she asked me about our finances. That's when I discovered something interesting. Remember how I mentioned I was doing freelance marketing? Well, turns out I was making pretty decent money, more than my husband, actually. But somehow I never felt like I had any financial power in the relationship. The lawyer explained that this was classic financial control. My husband had convinced me to put all my earnings into our joint account, which he managed. Meanwhile, he had his own separate checking account for business expenses that I never saw. Convenient, right? But here's where it gets good. Because I was the primary breadwinner and we lived in a community property state, I had way more leverage than I realized. Plus, all those freelance contracts I'd been working on, they were in my name, and several clients had already expressed interest in long-term partnerships. I started documenting everything. Every condescending comment from his mother, every time my husband dismissed my concerns, every instance of them, making decisions about my daughter without consulting me. I kept a journal, saved text messages, even recorded a few conversations when things got particularly bad. The real eye-opener came during Easter dinner at her house. Picture this. I'm sitting at the table with my 4-month-old daughter, trying to eat while she fusses, and his mom starts in on me again. You know, when my son was a baby, I never let him cry like that during meals. A good mother knows how to keep her child calm. I'm bouncing the baby, trying different positions, and she continues, "Maybe you should try the schedule I gave you. Structure is so important for children." Then my husband chimes in, "Mom's right. You've been too lenient with her schedule." I looked around the table at his whole family, his dad, his sister, even his grandmother, all nodding along like I was some kind of incompetent teenager instead of a grown woman with a college degree who was literally supporting their precious son financially. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just married to him, I was married to all of them, and they'd never see me as anything other than an outsider who somehow tricked their golden boy into marriage. I excused myself to change the baby's diaper, but really I went to the bathroom and called my lawyer. Right there in his mom's powder room with the weird rooster wallpaper, I told her I was ready to file. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Once we start this process, there's no going back." I looked at myself in the mirror, tired, stressed, holding my beautiful daughter who deserved better than growing up watching her mom get disrespected daily. I'm sure the paperwork was filed the following Monday. I had my lawyer serve him at his office because I wanted to make sure he couldn't spin it as some emotional outburst. This was calculated, planned, and completely legal. His reaction was exactly what you'd expect. First came the anger. "You can't be serious. We can work this out." Then the bargaining. "What if mom backs off? What if we go to counseling?" Finally, panic. "You can't take my daughter away from me, but here's the thing about doing your homework. I wasn't taking anything away. I was claiming what was rightfully mine." Update. You guys, the messages I've been getting are incredible. So many of you have shared similar experiences, and it breaks my heart that this kind of treatment is so common. For those asking about the custody situation, yes, we worked out a fair arrangement. I'm not trying to keep my daughter from her father, but I am making sure she grows up seeing her mom being treated with respect. What happened when his mom found out about the divorce papers, though? That's a whole other level of drama that I wasn't prepared for. The custody negotiation was actually smoother than I expected. My lawyer had advised me to propose a 60-40 split with me having primary custody during the school year. Since I was working from home and had more flexible income, it made sense. Plus, I had documentation showing that I was the primary caregiver. But his mom? Oh boy. When she found out about the divorce, she went full nuclear. She started by trying to go around me directly to my parents, called them up crying about how I was destroying the family and keeping her grandbaby away from her. My mom, bless her heart, listened politely for about 5 minutes before saying, "Maybe you should have thought about that before you told my daughter she couldn't take care of her own husband." Turns out, I wasn't the only one who'd been biting their tongue about her behavior. Then came the social media campaign. This woman created a whole Facebook post about daughters-in-law who turn children against their fathers, without mentioning names but making it obvious enough that mutual friends knew exactly who she was talking about. The comments section was a nightmare of people taking sides. My husband tried to use this as leverage. "Look what you've done to my family," he said during one of our mediation sessions. "Mom's devastated." "Your mom should have considered that before she decided to treat me like hired help instead of your wife," I replied. The mediator actually had to pause the session because things got so heated. That's when my lawyer pulled me aside and reminded me of something important. You don't have to justify protecting yourself and your daughter. The financial stuff is where things got really interesting. Remember how I mentioned that separate business account? Well, during discovery, we found out he'd been moving money into it for months. Money that should have been part of our joint assets. My lawyer called it dissipation of marital assets, which sounds fancy but basically means he was trying to hide money from me. But here's the kicker. Because I'd been the primary earner, and we could prove he'd been deliberately hiding assets, the judge wasn't too happy with him. I ended up with the house, majority custody, and a pretty decent spousal support arrangement until I could get my freelance business fully established. The day the divorce was finalized, I was sitting in the courthouse parking lot, and I got a text from his mom. "I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything." I stared at that message for a long time, thinking about all the ways I could respond. All the things I wanted to say about respect and boundaries and how her son was a grown man who should have stood up for his wife. But you know what I texted back? "I am happy. Thanks for asking." Moving into my new place was surreal. It's a cute 2-bedroom apartment with a little balcony where my daughter can play safely. Not as big as the house, but it's ours. No one's going to come in and rearrange my cabinets or tell me I'm doing things wrong. The best part? My freelance business took off. Without the constant stress and negativity, I had so much more mental energy to focus on work. I landed 3 major clients within the first month of being on my own, and I'm actually making more money now than my ex-husband ever did. My daughter is thriving too. She's got her routine down, and she seems so much more relaxed now that she's not constantly around tension. She still sees her dad every other weekend and one evening during the week, and he's actually a better parent when he's not performing for his mother's approval. The funniest part of this whole thing, about 3 months after the divorce was final, I ran into his mom at Target. I was in the baby aisle picking up diapers, and there she was, pretending to be very interested in some organic baby food pouches. She saw me and got this look on her face like she'd been caught shoplifting. For a second, I thought she might actually try to hide behind the display of Pampers. Instead, she walked over and said, "You look good." "Thanks," I replied, not really sure where this was going. The baby's getting big. She is, growing like a weed. Then she said something that honestly shocked me. I think I owe you an apology. I almost dropped the pack of diapers I was holding. Oh? I was protective of my son, but I went too far. You're a good mother. It wasn't everything I wanted to hear, but it was something. Progress, maybe. I appreciate that, I said. She's lucky to have people who care about her. We talked for maybe 5 more minutes. Normal conversation about the baby, how she was sleeping, whether she was crawling yet. It was the first time we'd ever talked without underlying tension or passive-aggressive comments. As I was leaving, she said, "For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. He needed to grow up." Update. This is probably my final update. Unless something major happens. The response to this story has been overwhelming, and I'm so grateful for all the support and advice. Some of you asked about whether I think the divorce was worth it, and honestly, best decision I ever made. My ex-husband has actually become a better co-parent now that he's not trying to please his mom all the time, and I've built a life that I'm genuinely proud of. To anyone dealing with similar situations, trust your instincts. You deserve to. Be treated with respect in your own home. Fast forward to now, almost a year later, and I'm sitting here in my living room watching my daughter take her first steps. She's holding onto the coffee table, looking so proud of herself, and I'm just overwhelmed with how far we've both come. My business is booming. I've got a steady roster of clients, and I'm actually considering hiring an assistant because I'm getting more work than I can handle alone. The financial independence feels incredible, knowing that I can provide for my daughter without depending on anyone else. My ex-husband and I have settled into a decent co-parenting routine. He picks up our daughter every other Friday and brings her back Sunday night. He's more present when he has her now, probably because he's not distracted by trying to manage his mother's opinions about everything. Speaking of his mother, we've maintained a polite but distant relationship. She sends birthday cards and Christmas presents, but she doesn't try to insert herself into parenting decisions anymore. It's like that Target conversation reset something between us. Not friendship, but mutual respect maybe. The house ended up being too much for me to maintain alone, so I sold it and bought a smaller place with the equity. It's got a great backyard for when my daughter gets older, and it's in a neighborhood with really good schools. Everything about it feels like a fresh start. Dating hasn't been on my radar much, honestly. I've been too focused on building my career and being the best mom I can be. But recently, I met someone at a client meeting who asked me out for coffee. We'll see where it goes, but for the first time in years, I feel like I'm approaching relationships from a position of strength rather than need. The funniest thing is how many people have told me they wish they had my courage. But here's the thing. It wasn't really courage. It was just finally deciding that I deserved better, that my daughter deserved to see her mom being treated with respect. Looking back, I can see that I spent so much time trying to prove I was good enough for their family that I forgot to ask whether they were good enough for mine. That conversation with his mother in my kitchen wasn't really about whether I could take care of her son. It was about whether I was going to keep letting them treat me like I didn't matter. The answer turned out to be no. Sometimes people ask if I regret not trying harder to make the marriage work. But honestly, I don't think you can make something work when only one person is trying. And more importantly, I don't want my daughter to grow up thinking that's what love looks like. She's going to know that she deserves to be with people who celebrate her, not people who constantly criticize her. She's going to know that she doesn't have to shrink herself to make other people comfortable. And she's going to know that sometimes the scariest decision is also the right one. So yeah, his mom was right about one thing. I couldn't take care of her son. But that's because he was a grown man who should have been taking care of himself and his family. I was looking for a partner, not another child to manage. These days, I take care of myself and my daughter, and we're doing just fine. Better than fine, actually. We're thriving. And you know what? I think that drives his mother crazy in the best possible way. Because every time she sees how well we're doing, she has to confront the fact that maybe, just maybe, her son was the problem all along, but that's not my concern anymore. My concern is building a life that makes me proud, raising a daughter who knows her worth, and maybe finding someone who sees my independence as attractive rather than threatening. From where I'm sitting, watching my baby girl explore the world with fearless curiosity, I'd say mission accomplished.